Hey there! I have this old chest I wanted to show you. I actually bought this when I was just a young boy from an old gypsy woman. And she told me at the time that it was a very special magic chest and never to lose it. And so I didn't know really what she meant for the longest time, and then I figured out how it works. So what you do is you get something you really like and that maybe you would like more of. And I really like this model 1890 Swiss soldier's knife, issued first in 1891 to the Swiss troops. This is the original and first Swiss Army knife. And the Swiss have been issuing knives to their military ever since. As a matter of fact, Switzerland is the only country in the world where a pocket knife is standard issue military equipment. So what you do, and these are very rare of course and very valuable, and I'd like to have more of them. So what you do is you open the chest and you put your item inside, you close it, and then you take something. I like to use this little Victorinox wand, and you say a few words over it like, "By the ghost of Karl Elsner and the fires of the forges of Vallorbe, Armée Suisse, Armée Suisse, Armée Suisse." And then you open it up, and lo and behold, you've got two now. So let's try that again. Put these back in here, close it back up, and we'll try it again. "By the ghost of Karl Elsner and the flames of the forges de Vallorbe, Armée Suisse, Armée Suisse, Armée Suisse." Wow! Now I've got four of them. This is great. Awesome. Should I do it again? No, I don't want to have to open 8 of them, particularly with my sore thumb. So I think I'll just quit right there. So let me just lay these aside. This could come in really handy. I don't want it anymore, so I'm all out of ideas. I think I'll just put it on eBay and auction it. Maybe no reserve, starting at 99 cents if anybody's interested. I mean, I'm thinking, it could come in really handy around rent time, or when you need groceries, you just throw some cash in there and yeah. So anyway, an old treasure chest given to me by a gypsy woman. Okay, well, all goofing around aside, this has to be a YouTube first to have 4 model 1890 Swiss soldiers on a table all at once, all at one time. First, had to do that. But you're looking at over 500 years combined age there. You're looking at not just hundreds of dollars worth of vintage knives, but thousands of dollars worth of vintage knives. But in addition to that, you're looking at a lot of Swiss legacy and history there. I think it's important to remember that there were no civilian model 1890s. They were all official military issue to Swiss soldiers, and they all saw duty. And as my friend from Switzerland, Stefan Schober, mentioned to me, any one of these knives could have been in the pocket of a Swiss soldier, say in 1911, during Swiss's Great Mobilization, when they mobilized their forces and they demonstrated to the heads of state of Europe their strength and their determination, and most particularly to Kaiser Wilhelm II, the last emperor of Germany. And that's credited for keeping him from invading Switzerland during World War I. Any one of these pocket knives could have been in the pocket of a Swiss soldier when he was sent to guard his country's borders during World War I. And because they called up so many older soldiers for World War II, any one of these knives could have been in the pocket of an older Swiss soldier called back up to defend the Swiss borders in World War II. So if these knives could just talk, the stories they could tell. But I think it's important to remember as we look at other things and discuss these knives that first and foremost, there's a lot of Swiss history, and a lot of Swiss pride there on the table represented by these 4 knives. Okay, so we're going to walk through at least one of these fully and look at the main blades on a couple more. But what I also am going to do is put a slideshow of pictures at the end, a side-by-side comparison of these knives and all their tools. What I want to create is a pictorial reference for someone who may be acquiring one of these knives or considering acquiring one of these knives, or perhaps someone who just has one of these knives and they want to check that knife for authenticity or compare its condition to these others. I think that will be a very valuable tool for someone. And then this one here I refurbished recently, and I made a video of that before and after work. I meant for that video to be part of this video, but it accidentally leaked out online, and some of my more loyal YouTube viewers caught that right away and watched it. Left a lot of really nice, supportive, kind comments. Thank you guys. But what I'll do is I'll also include that video at the end of this one as well. So it's going to be a rather long video, but hey, when do you really get to see this, huh? Okay, so the first knife, it's mine, from my collection. It's a Lorraine company, one of the first Swiss producers of this model. And we've looked at this knife before on a couple of different occasions, so I'm not going to go through it. Here it will be part of the pictures at the end, but we just wanted to have it on the table to show 4 at one time, of course. These 3 knives, you guessed it, are part of Dave Arnold's collection. Here is another Lorraine company and a couple of Elsners. Now Dave had a Lorraine company when I visited him in Toronto earlier this year to film his collection, but he has since sold that and upgraded it with this knife, whose condition is just superb. And then recently he's been able to acquire a couple of Elsners, and Elsners are probably the most sought after tang stamp. They're very popular, and because of that they're very valuable. I guess their appeal is that Elsner became Victorinox, and Victorinox is still the only company that makes the Swiss soldier knife. So the first thing I want to show you about this knife is really just its condition. I would consider this excellent, particularly for a knife that's 125 years old approximately. Here you can see the control stamp, the Type 1 control stamp that was used up until 1915. It's very clear. Now, typically what you're going to see is a very faint control stamp, if you can find one at all. If you see one that's too bold, too deep, looks too fresh, beware. There's probably forgery or chicanery going on there. So this one is authentic, and it's really quite good. And it's down in these oak scales. Now I've heard these described as ebony and also oak. I believe they're oak. I've read they were treated with different oils. Rapeseed oil comes to mind. That was done to preserve them and protect them, and that gave them the black color. I think it's oak just from the open structure of the grain. And if you think about it, ebony is an exotic, rarer, more expensive wood. Oak, readily available, a lot cheaper. It would make a lot more sense to use for a utility knife for soldiers. Let's take a look at the main blade. The tang stamp is Forge, Vallorbe, L+C. The Forges of Vallorbe. Vallorbe is a town in Switzerland, and L+C stands for Lorraine AC, or Lorraine Company. Now look at the fullness of this blade. They all had spear point blades until the model 1908, when they went to a clip point blade. But usually these blades are wasted away from years of repeated sharpening, like on my example. So it's really amazing to find one that's this full and in this great shape. This knife has excellent action. You can just hear the snap. The springs are very strong. Here's the can opener. The screwdriver, no cap lifter. These were made before they were bottle caps, widely in use. The spring action on these two tools is very strong. They didn't want those accidentally closing. You know, when you were opening an old stiff metal tin can with that, you know, didn't want it to close. So they don't lock out, but they have a very, very strong spring action. And then this rounded, very thick, old-style awl. This was a very important tool in 1891 up to 1901. You know, there were no Pinzgauers, the Swiss equivalent of the Jeep. People rode horses. They pulled their equipment with horses. There was a lot of leather tack, saddles, bridles. There were boots, belts. There were things that needed to be cleaned and have holes punched in them. And this tool was extremely useful to the Swiss soldier. So that's a Laresh and Company from the Dave Arnold collection. And now let's take a look at two Elsners also from his collection. Start with this one. Here again you can see the control stamp. It's a little more faint, but there it is. And you can also see that someone along the way has carved or written something in the scales. It's a little clearer on this side. It's really hard to discern what that says, but I can surmise that it's probably someone's name. It's not uncommon to find these old soldiers with a name or initials or a mark carved in them. All these knives looked the same, and the individual that it was issued to was responsible for keeping up with his equipment and presenting it during inspection, so I think a lot of the soldiers marked their knives. Here's the tank stamp. Reads Elsner Swiss, Elsner for Karl Elsner, Swiss for the canton in Switzerland where these were made. You know, Karl Elsner is credited or known for several things. One, building a great company, Victorinox, but also for inventing the floating spring, which allowed the first officer's model to have back tools that worked off the same spring the top tools did. It hung 6 tools off of 2 springs. That made for a more compact, efficient, elegant design. But he was also known for bringing together the independent cutlers in Switzerland to form the Swiss Masters Cutlers Association. He did that because when the Swiss Army first commissioned this knife, there was no one Swiss cutler that could meet the demand, the numbers that were needed. And so these knives originally were made in Sollingen's Germany by Western Company. And Karl Elsner didn't feel like that was right. He thought the Swiss Army knife ought to be made by Swiss cutlers. So he organized these cutlers, and through teamwork they were able to start producing them and meet the demand. It was kind of the birth of the cutlery industry in Switzerland. And here again we have another full blade. This one is a bit pitted. You can see from past corrosion some kind of worm grooves and things, but that corrosion is gone now, and it has a nice edge on it. This knife also has good walk and talk. So there's an Elsner. And then finally, let's take a look at this Elsner. Again, here's the control stamp, Type 1 control stamp used up till 1915. It's fainter on this knife, but there it is. This knife is also in very good condition. Here's the main blade. There's the tang stamp again. And look at the beautiful condition of that blade. So I said I have worked on it. My goal when I work on a knife like this is to first do no harm. I want it to remain authentic, but certainly want to stop some corrosion and clean it up. Speaking of corrosion, when you oil these knives and you work with them, you always get a little bit of bleed out, what I call bleed out. And to me that's a good thing. I like to see that coming out of there. It means the knife is going to start operating more freely. Hopefully we're getting oil down to places that were rusty, and they're now being protected as well. When I first got this knife, you really just had to force the blade all the way open. But it's starting to get a little snap. So there's another beautiful Elsner. Again, these are highly sought after. So there you have 4 model 1890 Swiss soldier knives on the table, the first and original Swiss Army knife. Over 500 years of combined age and Swiss history, all in one place at one time. Here comes the comparative pictures. Hope you enjoy them. Thanks for watching, and have fun collecting.